DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, actually especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. And then what we do for you here is we're going to put all this together into one bundle, into one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one approach, one way of living, one way of being. This daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And the topic of today's episode is how to make more impact with your words. How to make sure that you're getting your point across in a way that people register, that people hear it, that people remember it, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get lucky. People actually act on it and they retain what it is that you're offering. Now, while I've told you many times on the show, we talked about the value of your public speaking skills and why it's an essential life skill that will serve any person in any field. We talked about public speaking in episode 156, way back in 2016, how to get better at speaking. Episode 1684, 6 essential tools for confident public speaking. And also episode 1603, we talked about getting better at public speaking. And I've spoken on public speaking as a necessary skill for life. And all the episodes where we talked about life skills. When we talk about the career soft skills that we just talked about earlier this week, over the past week or so, public speaking wasn't one of the soft skills, because public speaking is more of a hard skill, but there are certain tools in the realm of those soft skills, such as problem solving skills, such as being able to handle stress, such as understanding human nature. All of those things will contribute to your ability to speak. And this is any kind of speaking, any kind of a conversation that you're having. This could be the written word, this could be a one-on-one conversation, and this could also be a one-to-many conversation. But these are all tools that you want to make sure you master. As we talked about in episode 1264, 3 communication skills you must master ASAP, and also investing in your communication skills in episode number 1257. So with all that said, as I already said, speaking one-on-one, one-to-many, and also writing, this topic will be of use to anyone who has the ability to speak, read, or write. So if you are listening to this and you can speak, you can read, or you can write, then you should be listening very closely. And I would suggest that you take notes on what we talk about here, because you're not going to remember everything that I said. And so you can go back over it and have it down in your words, not just what I say, but your interpretation of what I'm saying. Hopefully you keep it as close as possible to what I'm actually saying. Don't change up the message in your paraphrasing, but notes that you can go back over and remember so that you retain the stuff that I'm sharing here today. And before we even get into our points, let me remind you I have a text line where I want you to text me, join my text community, and let me know the most valuable, insightful thing you got from today's episode. My number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. Text me during your listening to this episode and let me know what's the most valuable thing you got from it. So let's get right into it. Point number 1. The topic, once again, is how to make more impact with your words. First thing you can do is learn the skill of brevity. The definition of brevity is being able to make a point make a strong point in as few words as possible. That's a paraphrased definition. And if you want to hear me go into detail on that, go listen to episode 1738, where I taught brevity, the skill of making your point without talking too much. These days, sometimes people just talk too much. There's an urban philosopher who made the following statement. He said, "Half short and twice strong." That urban philosophy goes by the name of the Genius, aka the GZA, from a rap group called the Wu-Tang Clan. And when I was thinking of this concept of brevity, to make your points be stronger, to make more impact with your words, I thought of that. So shout out to the GZA. The point is this: don't use 10 words when you can get your point across in 5 words. Why? Because your words are easier to remember when you use less of them, because you're asking less of the brains of your audience to try to remember everything that you say. It's easier for someone to remember 5 words than it is for them to remember 10. Your words are much easier to remember, and thus they will stick with people harder and longer when you use fewer. if you can still get the point across the same way. This is the skill of brevity. Again, that's why brevity is a skill. It is not a talent. It is not something, it's not optional. It's a skill that you can pick up that will help you get your point across much better to more people. People who talk a lot, you know what happens with them? You ever been around somebody who talks a lot? What happens is we sometimes tune them out. We end up tuning those people out because we know subconsciously that if we miss what they said today, we know they'll be talking all over again tomorrow. So anything we didn't hear today, they're gonna say it again and they're gonna keep talking. We'll eventually pick it up whenever it matters. But a person who doesn't say too much, a person who makes their point in 5 words when everybody else needs 10, that person will listen to everything that they say because we know that they're not throwing out so many words that we can just ignore it and pick it up whenever we get to it. They are not verbose, meaning they're not using so many words that we can just ignore them and get whatever we get. People who speak less cause the people around them to be all ears when they do speak because of the scarcity of their words. Now it also helps if this person has something of substance to say as well. As the saying goes, you'd rather be thought an idiot and remain silent than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. So if you don't actually have anything of substance to say, nothing of value to add, you could be a person of few words and you still shouldn't say anything because you have nothing of value to add. Now, if you have something of value to say and you can say it with brevity, that's when your words really start to have an impact because people will remember them, people will get them, and people will be listening closely to hear what you have to say because you have trained them to pay attention because your words are not a dime a dozen. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to make more impact with your words. Say what most people would not dare to say. This right here is the key element for any of you who is in a brand creator, building a personal brand, company brand. You want to be an influencer. You want to create social status. You want people to listen to you in any group of which you're a part. And that group could be the people who are on Facebook. That group could be a mastermind you're a part of. That could be in your family. That could be on a team that you're a part of in your business. If you want to make impact with your words, say what nobody else is saying. Say what everybody else is probably thinking, or maybe they're not thinking, but nobody will say it even if they did think about it. You be the one who is willing to say it. The author, James Altucher, said in one of his articles that he does not click the publish button unless he's nervous about what he's about to share. He said when he feels this way, nervous about what he's about to say, he knows he's about to say something that will be impactful to his readers because maybe he's just putting something out there that may be taboo to talk about, that maybe everyone thinks about, but they don't say. Maybe he's sharing something about his own life that is really makes him feel very vulnerable and exposed and naked and embarrassed, but he wants to put it out there anyway because he knows it will help other people feel the same way that he feels, but he doesn't hit publish if he feels like he's just saying something that's already acceptable, that's pretty, rote and pretty routine. He's not really saying anything different. And this is not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean everything that you have to say has to fit that description, but looking at the situation that you're in, the environment that you're a part of, the team you're a part of, reading the room, what is nobody saying that needs to be said? If you know what it is, the question is now, are you willing to be the one who says it? If you want to be remembered amongst any group of people, ask yourself the following question. What am I saying here that hasn't already been said? And this is something that there are authors that I know that anytime they're set to write a book, and I know people who are on opposite ends of the spectrum, and I'll tell you what end I'm on as well, is that some authors, when they're set to write a book, they go and get every book that's ever been written about the same topic that they're going to write about, and they research and read all those other books and take notes on all of them, and then they look for where's the space, where's the empty space in this field that no one has touched on yet, and I'm going to write about that. And of course, maybe they source and reference some of the other books that are already out there, but they try to find the empty space amongst what everybody else has already said on a certain subject. And that works for some people. Then there are other authors who will say something like, there was someone I just heard say this the other day, I can't remember who it was, but they said whenever they're writing a book, they don't read anything by anybody who has written on that topic or talked on that subject anytime in the recent past, because they don't want any of their work, the new author, they don't want any of the book that they're writing to sound like something that somebody else said. So they don't pay attention at all to what anybody else is doing. Me as an author, I've written 27 books. I got 2 more coming this year, so there'll be 29 by the end of this year at least. I don't really pay attention to what other people are doing. So I don't pay attention to who else is talking about a certain subject. And if I'm talking about discipline or confidence or mental toughness, I don't go read all the other books on that subject. I might read a book on one of those subjects if I'm interested in the author. I'm not reading it because I'm looking at them for like some kind of competitive research. I'm reading the book because I'm just interested in the book. But I don't pay attention to other people's stuff. So when I write my books, I'm not going to reference a whole bunch of other people's stuff. I'm not going to cite a lot of other people's works. There's not going to be a ton of footnotes in mine referencing some research that I did on other books. The book that I did the most research and had the most cited footnotes is probably my book, Work on Your Game, because in working with a traditional publisher, they were really insistent that, hey, can you put some research and some data behind some of the things that you're saying? It makes it more credible, etc. I don't necessarily think that really matters. I think the quality of the words and the quality of the writing is what matters the most, but to each their own. The point here is, we're still on point number 2 here. The topic again, how to make more impact with your words, is if you want to be remembered, you got to be saying something that hasn't already been said. Or say the thing that everyone in the room is thinking, but nobody wants to say it. Nobody wants to be the one to kind of break the mold or break the glass or break the seal and actually say that thing that you think might be on everybody's mind. And hey, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're the only one who was thinking it. But then once you say it, people are like, oh, you know what? I wasn't thinking about that, but you're absolutely right. Or maybe everybody's thinking it, but nobody wants to say it. Maybe everyone's thinking it because everyone's talking about it privately, but nobody's saying it in front of the whole group. Or maybe you'll say something that nobody was thinking and nobody even thought of it that way until you said it, and hey, maybe it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe it makes you a little bit uncomfortable to have done it, like James Altucher said. But this is the thing that's going to get you remembered when you're offering something different. Remember that different is better than better. Sally Hogshead is an author who wrote the book called How the World Sees You, and she wrote a few others, but her whole business and frameworks are all built around how do you make yourself stand out in whatever marketplace, whether that's at a job, whether it's as an entrepreneur, and whatever you're doing, how can you make yourself stand out? I think one of her other books is called Fascinate, and I think she might have more than that. But one of the things that she drives home in her book, Sally, is that being different is the key. It's not that you need to be better, because as I've told you here many times on the show, that being better is very subjective. Who's the judge of who's better than who? Who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James? Depending on who you ask, you're going to get a bunch of different answers, and not a bunch of different answers, only 2 answers, but each person who has a different answer will have a strong case for why they're saying what they're saying. So even though there are multiple answers, there are really strong cases for either side. You could agree with either side based on the arguments that are being made. So it's very subjective who's better. But who's different, that is subjective as well, but you can make yourself different in such an obvious way that there's not really a big argument that you're different from everyone else. And most of the time, people don't get mad at you when you say that you're different. People don't argue though, well, you're not that different because. But if you can make it clear that you're different, that's something that people will notice because it's distinctive. It's not like everything else that they've seen, so their eyes are not going to glaze over when they come across what you're offering because they haven't seen it before. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to make more impact with your words. Number 3, focus on telling people what they need to hear. This is something that I put myself in this category. I think this whole show is based on that, and actually all the content or products that I put out is really based on this. Telling people what they need to hear, not what you want to hear, but need to hear. The things people need to hear are the things that wake us up. When somebody tells you something that not what you want to hear, like, hey, if someone tells you how good you are and you're used to people telling you that you're good, that you appreciate it and you can accept that in a nice way, in a humble way, but it doesn't really wake you up. It doesn't jar you. You've appreciated it in a moment and then you completely forget it 5 minutes later. Why? Because you're used to hearing it. You've heard it before. But when someone tells you something that you haven't heard before, or they say it in a way that it hasn't been said to you before, that wakes you up. It gets your attention, not kind of gets your attention, but it gets your attention. It makes you think. It sticks in your mind. And not only does it stick in your mind, make you think and wake you up, here's the other thing. You remember the person who told you. See, when someone tells you something that you have not heard before, something that hasn't been said to you before, something that you didn't necessarily want to hear, but you needed to hear, you remember that person forever. You might only have come across that person one time, but the one time they said that one thing to you, you never forget that individual. Do you have situations like that? In my book, Work on Your Game, I talked about a story where I was playing pickup basketball in LA Fitness and this was around 2005. This is early in my career. I think I had played a little bit of pro ball at this point, but I'm in the United States. I was playing pickup at LA Fitness in Andorra in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And there was this older guy. He's maybe in his 30s, maybe late 30s. Never knew this guy before, had never met him before. I'd never seen him in the gym there before. And I used to play there every day playing pickup because the pickup games there were really good. And I never seen him in the gym anymore after that day. But that day, he was talking to me in the locker room after the games, and he was complimenting my game and telling me that he liked my skills and saw that I had talent. And he was like, Dre, but sometimes you were coasting in some of these games. And what you need to do is play hard, and you need to play harder more consistently. He was like, you can be smooth, you got a smooth game, but make sure you don't let that smoothness turn into coasting. So be smooth, but don't coast. And I did a whole section in my book, Work on Your Game, on that very phrase that this guy used. It was the first time I ever heard anybody use that phrase anywhere, and he was talking directly to me. And again, I only seen that dude one time ever. Never seen him before that, never seen him after that, don't even remember what his name was. And I still remember that conversation 15 plus years later, because it was something that I needed to hear, and it was something that I never heard before. It was different, and it was something that I needed to hear. If you can find the mix of those two things in your speech and anything that you're going to say, write, publish, whatever, people will remember you forever because you told them what they needed to hear and you said it in such a way that they had never heard anything like that before. It's huge. Things that we want to hear, because we've already heard them from ourselves, if not from everyone else already, they kind of go in one ear and out the other. We can appreciate it, but it doesn't make impact because it was already going through our minds before somebody even said it to us. But let me give you a note here on the side. What people need to hear is often not a brand new idea. What someone needs to hear may not be something that's completely 100% brand new. I mean, I had basketball coaches many times up to that point when I ran into this one guy in LA Fitness. And every coach tells you to play hard and tries to push all the players to practice harder, et cetera, et cetera. And I had coaches who told me, hey, you got to practice harder or run harder or bring more energy, et cetera, et cetera. He wasn't this guy in LA Fitness. He wasn't even a coach. He was playing with us, but he was just giving me some mentoring after the days pickup games. It wasn't the first time anybody had said something along those lines to me. So it wasn't a brand new idea. It was something that had been thought in my mind and had been said to me before. The thing is, sometimes you mention something to someone that it exists in their mind, but it's been buried so deeply in their subconscious, so deeply in their psyche that maybe they're hoping that it goes away. They just ignore it and nobody brings this up, then maybe it'll just go away and it'll disappear. Again, subconsciously. What you do when you put it in their faces is you're opening that up again. You're opening that door again in their mind and making them think of this thing that they tried to forget. Again, unconsciously tried to forget. Now, they may not like what you're saying to them, definitely not in the moment many times, but they won't forget what you're saying to them. And those are two different things. People don't have to like you to remember you. And when people remember you, then you have created significance. And that doesn't mean you have to be negative on purpose. I want to make sure I'm being clear. Now, you might be. That is a way to be remembered, but it doesn't mean you have to do that. This tool is only for those of you, this third point, this is only for those of you who have the internal fortitude to deal with the pushback that you will receive when you do this. Because when you go to people and tell them what they need to hear and not what they want to hear, some people are not going to appreciate what you're saying to them. They're not going to appreciate how you're communicating with them. Do you have the internal fortitude to deal with that pushback? Because it will come. If you don't have that internal fortitude, then you can't use this third point. You can't tell people what they need to hear if you're not willing to deal with their reactions. You're not willing to deal with their emotions. You're not willing to deal with the possible negative energy that you may stir up between you and that individual because you told them something that they really didn't think they would need to revisit ever again in their lives because it's not new to them. They just didn't want to think about it anymore. Are you willing to do that? Anyone listening to this who works as a coach, sports coach, life coach, business coach, any kind of mentor, you're in a mastermind group, you have to be willing to do this. Parents, you have to be willing to do this. Tell people what they need to hear. And then you have to be willing to deal with the response of those people when they hear something that may not have been so pleasant to them. Because not everybody has as much mental toughness as they need to have, but I'm doing my part by giving you this masterclass every day so we can help solve that problem. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is how to make more impact with your words. Number one, learn the skill of brevity. Like the Jizza said, half short and twice strong. Do not use 10 words when 5 words will do. Why? Because your words are easier to remember and thus they will stick with people when you say less but still get your point across. It helps if you also have some substance to go with it. Point number two, say what most people would not dare say. James Officer says he doesn't publish an article unless he's nervous about what he's about to share because he knows it exposes him and it will make people think in a way that they otherwise would not have been thinking. So your question is, what are you saying that has not already been said? If you don't have something, don't publish it. Number three, focus on telling people what they need to hear. Things that we need to hear are the things that wake us up. These are things that we will remember. And understand that the things that people need to hear is not necessarily needs to be something brand new that has never been said to them before, but it's something that's been buried deep in their psyche, in their unconscious, that they thought maybe they could get away with never thinking about again. You're putting it in their faces and smacking them upside the head with it again and making them pay attention to it. They might not like it, but I guarantee you that they will not forget it. And remember, this topic today is not how to get people to like you with your words. It's how to make impact with your words. And if you want to make impact, you must be remembered. My text number is 305-384-6894. Send me a text message right now. Tell me the most valuable insight, the most golden nugget that you got from today's episode and what you're going to do with it, how you're going to use it moving forward. If there is something that really touched you, tell me what it is. 305-384-6894 and work on your game. Dre all day.